The Tiger 660 stands out amongst its peers as being the only triple-engined bike in the sector. It seems to offer quite a lot for relatively little money, so what's it actually like to ride and to live with? This bike drops into what is a relatively busy sector, and I guess its main competitors are going to be the Kawasaki Versys 650, the Yamaha Tracer 7, and I guess we can throw the V-Strom 650 from Suzuki and the Honda CB500X into the mix too. The Tiger is the most expensive of that bunch at £8,550, but it's closely followed by the Tracer 7 at £8,450. Then the Suzuki comes in at £7,999, and the cheapest of the bunch is the Honda at £6,599. So it's competitively priced against its rivals in the sector, but as I say, this is the only triple available, and it is more powerful than all of the others too. I have already made a video that covers all of the specifications of the Tiger 660, which I did on its launch. So instead of going through all of that data again in this review, I'll leave a link to that previous video up in the top corner and in the description, and we can jump straight into the riding experience. The first thing you notice when you jump on the Tiger Sport 660 is just how comfortable the riding position is. Triumph seems to have got this set up particularly well. Now obviously this is me talking, I'm 5'10", 32-inch inside leg, so it will differ for somebody else. But as soon as I plonked my bum on this bike, it felt comfortable. The seat is just a basic one-piece foam seat. The bars are in a really nice position, nice wide bars. I think they're 860mm, 865, something like that. And but they're kind of swept back towards you, so you've got a nice relaxed arm bend. The pegs are relatively low, so I've got very relaxed bend in the knees as well, and it seems like it's something that they've really thought about. It's instantly comfortable when you sit on it, and even after long distances in the saddle, it's not too bad. That saddle, you do start to feel kind of the plastic in it. That may be because I've got 15 stone sitting on it, but you don't feel that for at least an hour and a half when riding. Yeah, it's a lovely place to be. In terms of the other key ergonomics, then the screen is one thing that obviously is going to have an impact on your riding pleasure, and they've done a pretty good job with this screen as well. It is a bit noisy, but then pretty much every bike like this I've ridden with a screen is going to create some kind of wind noise. Of course, one of the good things about the screen is it's very easy to adjust. You've just got a grab handle there, you can pull it up, pull it down. In its highest position you do get more wind coverage from your chest. I can start to hear that crackling a little bit around the top of the helmet here, but that's pretty good. And obviously you can put it in positions anywhere in between, but it's nice and easy to do, and overall a pretty good job, if I'll be honest. On the back you've got little sockets there to be able to hang panniers should you want to do that, and I can see that this would be pretty comfortable bike for doing a bit of travelling on. The 660cc motor, and we'll talk about that in a later, but it's 80 horsepower and 64 newton meters of torque, I think. If you're too up full of luggage, it's still got plenty of power, but it might not be the most relaxed, but we'll come on to that when we talk about the engine. Just the rest of the ergonomics, switch gear really simple, but by the same token there's not really very much that you're going to have to be messing around with. You've got two riding modes, road and rain. You've got switchable traction control, so you can turn it on or off, and that's essentially it. You've got a few other bits and pieces you can play with in terms of the setup of the screen and stuff. The internals of the clock are the same as the Tridents, pretty much. They're just, instead of being in a round bezel, they're mounted into this, so you've got a TFT screen at the bottom and an LCD screen at the top. Nice and clear, everything on there that you could ever need. The only negative that I have about this screen is that it's got a slight dome to it, and I've noticed this, if you've got bright sun directly behind you, it can be really difficult to read if the sunspot's in the wrong place. That's a small niggle that could be fixed with a bit of anti-glare tape over it. This has got heated grips. I don't know if that's standard, I'll have to check and I'll mention it on the screen because I've only just noticed the button. It's the Triumph integrated grips. Right, starts at £8,550, which I think is pretty damn good actually for what you got. It is a bit more stripped back, it is a little bit more basic, but in an age where people are whinging about bikes getting heavier, bigger, more complicated, it's refreshing to see a bike like this that's got just exactly what you need on it and nothing more. Having said that, I'll probably still get comments from people saying it hasn't got this, it hasn't got that, so you can never win on that. It's, if you put everything on the bike, people say it's got too much. If you don't put anything on it, people say it's not enough. I guess that's human nature. The suspension is from Showa. We've got a 41mm upside down fork on the front, and it's a separate function fork, non-adjustable, but actually does a pretty good job. I haven't got too many complaints about it at the moment. And you've got a Showa monoshock out the back, which has a hydraulic preload adjuster on it, which is good to see again on a bike where you're likely to be putting luggage on or taking a pillion. To be able to pump some preload in without getting C-spanners out is a nice touch. Brakes are Nissin calipers, pretty good. No complaints about that, they do exactly what they need to do. Reasonable feel, pretty firm. One of the key standouts on this bike I think is this 660cc triple engine. As I say, it's a motor that we first saw in the Trident, and it's a cracking little triple. Obviously Triumph well known for their triple engines, and this is a good one. It's revvy, it's very revvy, it's nice and eager. What it lacks in punch in terms of torque, it makes up for in flexibility and just big long pulls of power. I would imagine it's got a pretty flat torque curve like most of the triples have, but it's a very flexible engine as well. So fourth gear, and I'm down to 23 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, and it's quite happy. That's about 19 miles an hour, and it pulls out there in fourth gear with no real complaints. It's a really flexible little engine. I think there's a 240-degree crank in this, so it's nice and smooth, good power delivery, nothing snatchy on the throttle. Sounds pretty good as well. I'm sure we'll be seeing this engine pop up in a few other bikes at some point in the Triumph range. And although this is not really a successor to the Tiger Sport 1050, it's a bike in a similar vein. This is a really nice option to look at. I've been very impressed with it so far. Now I don't watch too many other reviews, bike reviews, prior to me doing a review. I want to make my own mind up. I don't want to get any kind of thoughts in my head about what it is. So I've not watched many of these, but I do get the impression that from the comments I've seen that all of the reviews are glowing. But I have to say, for a bike that costs brand new £8,500, this Tiger is very good indeed. Not only is the engine good, the handling is very good as well. It's a really nimble bike, but it's so light and nimble, handles really well, you can change direction really quickly, really nice kind of gentle power delivery, but you can really wind it on. So not an intimidating bike by any means, but it will really get on if you want it to. You just have to work the gearbox and the revs a bit harder. It's interesting actually when bikes get sort of pigeonholed. Now when you start to think about who this bike would suit, it doesn't really fall into any kind of category. Obviously for the adventure bike riders, it hasn't really got the off-road capabilities. I mean, you probably could take it a fair way, but we've got cast wheels, we've only got 150mm of travel, we haven't got that much ground clearance. Not a bike designed for that. If you're looking for that kind of adventure touring bike, but you don't want a big 1200 or a GS or an RT or any of the big heavy bikes, then this is a good choice. At 209 kilos, curb weight, fully fueled, that's very manageable. Seat height's 830mm I think, or 835. Me with 5'10", 32-inch inside leg, I can flat foot this easily, but I think it's a very manageable bike. I think as a first big bike, if you've just passed your test and you want to jump onto that kind of middleweight bike, this is really good. I think commuters would love it. This would be fantastic to commute on. It's a nice slim bike, pretty compact, you've got pretty decent weather protection, I would quite happily commute on this, but it's also good fun just to get out and scratch around and do some exploring on. As you know, if you've watched any of my reviews, I never particularly gush about bikes. Maybe I'm just not that an excitable person. I'm a grumpy old man at heart, so you're never going to hear videos of me getting over enthusiastic. But this is a very good bike, and when you consider the price, I think it's good value, it's a good deal. Obviously £8.5 grand is a lot to spend if you're looking around in the used market, but if you want that warranty that you get with the new bike, we've got 10,000 mile service intervals, then for good value, fun to ride, practical machinery, the Tiger 660 Sport is bloody good. Rah rah rah. Actually, I'm not far away from my friends at Hideout, so if I go down here, two things. It's a nice place to stop to have a look around the bike, and there's an absolutely fabulous road that leads away from there, which is one of my favourite short stretches of road. There we go, let's just pop into Hideout. So here we go, Tiger Sport 660. I think it's actually a really nice looking bike. I think it looks much better in the metal than it did from the press shots. It's very tidy, nice neat exhaust, that front end's good. All in all, just a really nicely put together machine, as you'd expect from Triumph. Build quality is always very good. That was nice to pop in and say hello to Kate at Hideout, always a pleasure. And this is the little bit of road I was talking about when you come out of there. This is a pretty uneven piece of road actually, so I think it's given me a good idea of how well this stock suspension works. It is a little bit bouncy. Oh, all in all not bad. I missed that pothole. I haven't talked about the gearbox yet, so let's get that covered off. And again, no real issues from that. It's quite a soft gearbox. Putting it into first gear, you don't really have that positive clunk. It just sort of goes into gear. Other than that, the gear shifts have been pretty clean and slick. It's just a little bit slushy, not the most positive. Another thing to think of with practicality, which I haven't covered off yet, is the fuel range. This has got a 17.2 litre tank, and if I flick through my controls here, we can see it's giving me an average on my last trip of 61.4 miles per gallon. So 61 miles per gallon, 17.2 litre tank. You can do the maths, but that's going to give you a pretty decent range. And to be honest, I've not really done very much in the way of motorway riding. It's been this sort of twisty stuff. So I would imagine you can get that mileage up. I'll be honest and say that I have found a little bit of buzz through the bars, and particularly if you're riding it around at very high revs. It's not a disaster, and I wouldn't call it a vibration, it's just a buzz, but I'm only just picking it up through the hand grips. It's an observation, I can feel it, but it's not bothered me. So there's not really much more I can add to the review actually. I think I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about the bike. I think it looks good, the engine's good, suspension's pretty good, it's pretty comfortable, it's very practical, it's priced well. I think Triumph have got a winner here, and it'd be interesting to see what the sales are like. But as I say, it's a bike that kind of fits all kind of purposes, for commuters, for tourers, for new riders, older or smaller riders that don't want the bulk of the big adventures or adventure tourers. I think it hits the button. So if you've got any questions about the bike, then leave those in the comment section down below. A like and a subscribe are obviously always welcomed, and all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.